Hi all. So this topic is about tenders. So I hope you had been through the previous session to it, tenders part one. So in tenders part one, I had discussed about various concepts of tenders, such as how the inquiry documents for a tender has to be made. Usually it is prepared by the principal. And what do you mean by inquiry documents? So who has to issue inquiry documents, and the ways of charging inquiry documents. So how this tenders will be called? Okay, basically it will be a negotiated tender, open tender, or restricted tendering. So all these concepts that has been explained in the session or the topic called as tenders part 1. So that particular session will be acting as a prerequisite to this session called as tenders part 2. So the lecture objective or the outcome of this particular session here, after studying this particular tenders part 2, you should be able to identify and explain the various steps involved in tendering process. Like in the earlier session, we had discussed about how the tendering documents will be prepared, means how the charging of inquiry documents will be made. But here, how once you have already prepared inquiry documents, so once you have called a contractor, then how you are going to proceed ahead with it. So that process, tendering process, will be discussed in this particular session. That will be the outcome of this session. Preparation of tender documents and its submission. Usually the tender documents will be prepared as per the inquiry documents. So the requirements of the tenderer, so based on the forms of agreement, um, all those things, the tender documents will be prepared. So here in this particular presentation or in this session, how the tenders, submission of tenders will be made in we'll discuss. So the three major things you have I'll be discussing in this session is, first is submission of tender. So as a contractor, on the part of a contractor, how that particular contractor will be submitting his tender, in what way the contractor submits the tender to the principal. That will be the first part I'll be discussing here. The second part, okay, the second part I'll be discussing is receipt of tender. Once the contractor submits the tender, uh, that will be, next will be the receipt of the tenders. The principal or the owner will be receiving the tender. That is a receipt of tender. The next part of the tendering process is opening of tender. So the contractor has submitted the tender, the principal or the owner has received the tender. Now the this particular um, tenders has to be opened. Who will be opening these tenders? It will be opened up by the principal or the owner. That is called as tendering process. These three parts will be uh, forming a major part of tendering process. Then after post tendering process or the tender evaluation, all those processes are there, which I will be discussing in the further slide. So the first part, that is the submission of tender, it will be usually in three envelopes. So what these three envelopes, there will be three envelopes, means the contractor has to submit his details in three envelopes. So in these three envelopes there will be envelope 1, envelope 2, and envelope 3. So what details has to be submitted in envelope 1, and what things need to be submitted in envelope 2 and envelope 3, I'll be discussing here. So in envelope 1, the contractor has to submit the registration details, okay, registration details of registered contractor or a certificate as a registered contractor. So the contractor has to furnish his registration certificate. That is the first document that a contractor has to keep for envelope 1. So these here are the set of documents. So here these are the set of documents. That is, first the registration certificate of a contractor means under which department he has registered, or under which type of contract works the contractor has got a license. So those registration certificate or a details of the registration details of the contractor is the first document. So the next is information regarding pre-qualification requirements. So, or a pre-qualification documents with prescribed forms. For example, the contract says uh, the contract document or basically the invitation of tender says the contractor should be a type of class 1, means class 1 contractor means who is handling a works greater than some 20 lakhs or greater than 25 lakhs, like that. There are different classes of contractors. So if a class 4 contractors means for a small works, usually less than 15,000 or 50,000 or less than 1 lakh, those will be called as class 4. Like that, there are different class of contractors. So here the contractor has to furnish his details under whether he is pre-qualified for that or not, whether he is pre-qualified for the requirements of that particular contract or not, whether he is a class 1 contractor, class 2 contractor. So that details he has to submit. So the third detail is details of joint venture, if any, together with information called for in this respect by the terms of invitation. Means uh, whether the company is a single entity or it is a multiple entity, means uh, they are merging with some other companies, or whether independently that company itself is taking the project. Means usually sometimes for some special type of contracts, if there is having a wide scope of work, two companies or one or two companies or more than two companies, they mutually make an agreement and enter into contract, that is called as joint venture. So if there is any such kind of joint venture for this particular contract, those details has to be furnished here in the envelope 1. The next set of document in envelope 1 is a check or a DD or a government treasury challan or a deposit at call receipt of any scheduled bank for the amount of earnest money, or a certificate of exemption for payment of earnest money that has to be submitted by the contractor. So a check or DD or a government treasury challan means, so usually it is the bank, it is a type of bank guarantee, or it is a we call it as a insolvency certificate. Means the contractor is a valid contract and he will not run out of the work, means he will not be bankrupt, like that. Some surety kind of um, bond here, that will be given here in the means showing the validity of the contractor. So and if there are any bank guarantees, that applicable bank guarantees has to be furnished here. Usually, I told in my earlier session, I discussed that it is a irrevocable bank guarantee. All those things will be given in the envelope 1 of the submission of tender. Next, uh, it in envelope 1, this details of public works, means the works that has been already carried out in previous years. In last 5 years, what are the different works that has been carried out, that will be mentioned here. And from the last uh, 5 years, the similar kind of works that has been taken up by the contractor, those details has to be furnished here. And also the income tax clearance certificates, that is the particular contractor or that company who is going to become the contractor, whether they have paid all the income taxes from the past 3 years. So that valid proof, that is income tax clearance certificate, so has to be furnished. Okay, so almost usually they take 3 years uh, income tax certificate past 3 financial years, that income tax certificate has to be given. And the last fresh certificate, it should not be more than dated not more than the 3 years. So sorry, not 3 months. So that last certificate, whatever it has been taken, it should not be old one. It should be fresh one. That is not more than the 3 months prior to the last date fixed for the receipt of tender. So then here the contractor is also supposed to furnish the details of the resources. Again, I am repeating here, the details of resources means what manpower he is having, what machineries he is having, what plants. Plants means it might be a concrete batching plant or it might be a asphalt batching plant. Okay, like that, what different kinds of manufacturing plants is having. Okay, and what type of equipments that contractor is having, means the list of plants, machinery, equipments and those resources, so which is related to that particular project, not it is just an asset. It should be related to the particular project where the contractor is submitting the tender. So that list of machinery and plant which are immediately available, and these plants and machineries should not be just as an asset, it should be available for the work. Means if the contractor has been awarded that work, these plants and machineries should be able to deploy, it should be able to deploy it at the site. So those list of machinery and plant which are immediately available, and also if it is not immediately, okay, if it is not available immediately, the and the contractor has to furnish the manner how it will be procured. So here, if this machineries are not available, the contractor should say how it will be procured, means whether the contractor will be purchasing it, or whether it will be he'll be getting hired for hiring those machineries for rent. Okay, all those things, the details has to be furnished here in the list of machinery and plant. So then the details of technical persons on the roles of tenderer. So usually what happens in government projects, uh, the principal or the owner, so to take up a particular project they will be mentioning some pre-qualification criteria, means so some 10 senior engineers should be there, 5 senior designers should be there, 4 project managers should be there. So like that uh, there will be criteria. So if there are 10 senior engineers, then yes, this company is having a rating 10 out of 10. If instead of 10, if it is having 8 senior engineers, the rating is 8 out of 10. Like that, while evaluating these resources, technical resources comes into picture. So here the contractor has to furnish the details of technical persons on the roles of tenderer. So different roles on the different roles of the tender, the technical personal details has to be furnished here. So here in the details of works of similar type and magnitude of the work carried out, means details of similar work means the contractor may have already executed such kind of works. So if it is a pipeline work or a drainage pipeline laying work, so those contractors have already completed such kind of works or similar kind of works earlier. So in the past 5 years, and the intensity of the work, it is not just a some 100-meter stretch or 1 kilometer stretch. So it should be the magnitude, means the quantum of work here. Okay, that is executed by the contractor in earlier work, that has to be mentioned here. So the that is what details of work of similar type and magnitude of work carried out. So the next um, document that has to be submitted by the contractor is details of other works tendered and those in hand. Okay, so details of other works that is in hand means, so the contractor will not be waiting for a single job. So usually he will be continuing with the similar kind of projects in different places, or different projects in different places. Like that, the similar whatever under that particular license or under that particular um, contractor's name, what are the different works that are executed, means that are executed and that are currently in progress. So those details has to be mentioned here. And the value of work unfinished on the last date of the submission of tender, means while this tender is going to be submitted, so the details of work that has been already completed and the progress of the work and the remaining portion, the means the unfinished work of the earlier projects, those details has to be submitted here. Okay, that is just before the last date of submission of the tender for these particular projects. So to show the validity of all the data whatever has been furnished by the contractor, the uh, particular proofs, so valid certificates and proofs has to be provided by the contractor. Next is envelope 2. In envelope 2, so now till now I have discussed envelope 1. So what the overview, if I tell about the overview of envelope 1, envelope 1 will be having a pre-qualification criteria, registration details of the contractor, technical persons, plant and equipments or machinery of the contractor, uh, works that are in hand within the contractor. So all this contractor, basically the contractor financial details, technical details, all those things will be in envelope 1. So now the contractor has to submit another envelope that is called as envelope 2. Here in this envelope, what details will be there? Okay, usually in envelope 2, okay, in envelope 2 there will be a covering letter for the offer. Okay, so in envelope 2, what covering letter for the offer means? So here the letter of interest. So the contractor has to give that letter of interest, means the contractor is willing to take that project. So and the details of quoting for the project or the details of that particular project, um, for which from the contractor side, here that covering letter for the offer should be given by the contractor. And special features means apart from the specification mentioned by the owner, so whether the contractor is giving some special features or whether the contractor is having has assumed some special offers or he has some assumed some additions, so that special features of contracts has to be mentioned in envelope 2. So then the assumptions, conditions means usually the principal might have given his requirements, but the contractor might have thought or taken that in some other way. So those are called assumptions. So whatever the assumptions that contractor has made, that has to be mentioned here in envelope 2. And the conditions, if contractor is having some conditions for the work, okay, if contractor is having his own conditions of work, okay, those conditions of contract has to be mentioned here. Then deviations means, so usually the principal will be giving his ideas or his details of the contract, but contractor on his side will be mentioning his views also. So those difference in views or difference in opinions or difference in the assessing the contract document, if there are any deviations, so those things can be submitted by the contractor. Okay, then if tenderers means if the contractor is having his own design, for example, uh, let us assume that the principal had thought of implementing a conventional slab, RCC slab, but contractor say instead of conventional slab, I have an offer that I have a machinery which is executing the precast slab itself. So I will be able to execute such kind. So here the tenderer is having his own design, he is having his own view, which is upgraded or which is more advanced to the views of the principal. So those things has to be mentioned in the envelope 2. So here the tenderers own design. Okay, in envelope 3, main tender documents. Main tender documents means the bill of quantities. So the as per the specifications provided or as per the requirements provided by the principal or the owner. So the contractor might prepare the bill of quantities, or for the in what way the works, in what kind of work he will be charging. So those tender documents and different forms of agreement here, those main tender documents will be placed in envelope 3. So then amounts or rates offered by the tenderer, as I said, the estimation copy or some project report which is prepared by the contractor. Okay, the bill of quantities, we call it as BOQ, bill of quantities prepared by the contractor. So those amounts or rates will be offered by the contractor. So presentation, before presenting the tender, it has to be rechecked, signed and sealed. So the contractor who is willing, okay, before presenting, he has to recheck, sign and seal all the documents, whether it is envelope 1, 2, 3. So all the documents has to be rechecked, signed and sealed. So before presentation, tender will be rechecked, signed and sealed. So I told you in the part one, it is the um, submission of tender. So this envelope 1, 2, 3, okay, which will be checked by the contractor. It will be covered in the envelopes. These three sealed envelopes will be put together in one common cover and sealed. So all these three envelopes will be put in a single cover and it will be sealed. And on the top of it, the on the top of the envelope, the title of the project, the last date of submission of the tender, full name and address of the tenderer, means the details of the contractor will be mentioned on the particular envelope. So name of the authorized agent delivering the tenders, means usually these tenders, it is a um, um, it is a very secret document. I can say it is a very confidential document and it should not be in the other hands, means there is a chances that other contractor can take this document and see the quotation and he might try to compete with the contract. So to avoid such things, so the name of the authorized agent delivering the tenders, those details also has to be submitted. This is the process of submission of tenders. Once the tenders has been submitted, the second part or the second process is receipt of tenders. So in receipt of tenders, what will be done? So in receipt of tenders, once the envelope will be received at that office, time and date of the receipt should be noted together. Means time and date of the receipt should be noted together with the name or initials of the persons receiving. Here there will be a person in charge to receive the tenders. So he will be mentioning and he will be signing. Okay, he will be signing that receipts. Okay, he will be signing that receipts. Okay, with his seal and sign. So the tenders, once it will be submitted, it will be placed in a safe. Okay, it will not be easily accessible to hands of other persons. It will be placed in a safe until opening. So until the day of opening, this tenders will not be, the seal will not be broken. It will be placed in a safe place. So this receipt of tenders should be logged in a schedule. There should be a log, okay, which has inward and outward. Means inward means whatever the tenders that has been received, and that is an inward, or we can say the documents. There usually the departments or government departments will be having this log, inward and outward. So uh, the end. So ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅದೇನ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ so the tenders will be placed in a safe until opening. So the receipt of tender should be logged in a schedule. So 24 hours before the nominated closing time, the schedule should be checked. So the last date of before the last date of closing the tender, all the log and the schedule should be checked. The next part, so the first part of all submission of tenders, the second part was submission receipt of tenders. The third part is opening of tenders. So which tenders has to be opened first? So in this meanwhile, in this process of tendering, there will be some contractors who want to withdraw their offer. Means for example, initially the contractor is showing or is willing to take up the work, but in some cases due to his personal constraint or financial constraint or some other factors, the contractor might not be able to take up the project if awarded. So what he will do is he'll submit a letter or he'll submit a letter for a withdrawal. So such tenders envelope or such envelopes marked with withdrawal means those applications which are having withdrawal are opened first. Why? Because it should not be a dummy tender or it should not be some corrupt kind of tender. So to avoid such instances, the withdrawal tenders will be opened first. So then opening of tenders, the first envelope will be opened. So in the first envelope, what will be there? It will be having a pre-qualification criteria, details of the contractor, eligibility of the machinery of the contractor, the technical details of the contractor. So those details will be matched with the pre-qualification criteria or pre-qualification details of the principal. So if the contractor is qualifying for that project, then if the if that person or that particular contractor is qualifying, then envelope 2 and 3 of such contractors will be considered. But if they fail in envelope 1, the envelope 2 and 3 will not be considered and it will not be opened. So if envelope 1 is not considered, if envelope 1 is not meeting the requirements, then envelope 2 and 3 will be not be considered. So here there will be no pre-qualified bidders. The envelope 2, okay, once the envelope 1 having a pre-qualification criteria, so the contractor, if they meet the pre-qualification criteria, then it will be forwarded for envelope 2. In envelope 2, what things will be there? In envelope 2, forwarding letter of the tenderer. Okay, forwarding letter of the tenderer means there is a offer letter, right? So that on the letterhead he will be giving, the contractor will be giving the offer letter. So that in envelope 2, that letter will be opened. So the forwarding letter of the tenderer, his assumptions, conditions, deviations shall be read out. Means it will be read out to the people who are in the tendering process, so that whatever the contractor has made his assumptions, whether it is in line with the principal's requirements, okay, or the assumptions whatever the contractor has made, whether it is in line with the principal's assumptions or principal's conditions, or if there is any deviations between the assumptions and conditions made by the contractor, okay, those things will be clarified here. Then it will be scrutinized by the tender inviting authority. So if there are any common set of deviations, it will be incorporated in the tender. Means uh, if there are any rectifications, so that has been pointed out by the contractor, those things will be changed in the tender. So some additional stipulations that has to be acceptable to the owner, those things will be formulated and informed to the competitive tenders. So effect of this in terms of money, because due to some changes in the specifications or due to some changes in the due to, because some deviations might be noted at that time and there might be change in the tender document. In such cases, the value of the tender might change. So those things might affect the terms of money or the terms of percentage. So such deviations or such um, changes can be provided in the new tender, submissions can be made in the new tender envelope, and it has to be submitted in envelope 3A. So the deviations, changes, whatever it has been made, those can be submitted in envelope 3A. That is, this envelope 3 also, the principal or the owner will give time period, like within 15 days, 20 days for resubmission of only for the deviations, not for the complete um, clauses, or not for the complete agreement, only for the few deviations which has been pointed out during the envelope 2 openings. So those has to be submitted in envelope 3A, that is on or before specified time. Envelope number 2, the tenderers should be aware of the additional facilities offered to them, that is, they can reduce bids. So their conditions that have been rejected to increase in their bids in the form of percentage. Envelope 3 and envelope 3 should be enclosed. There should be no fresh conditions. Means whatever the discussion that has been made, okay, only the changes to those discussions has to be mentioned in envelope 3A. Not this 3A and 3A should not be completely different. Only 3 and 3A, when we compare, the only changes that has been mentioned while opening envelope 2, those changes has to be mentioned in envelope 3A. Okay. When contractor's own design is allowed by the owner, broad details to be enclosed. For example, if the contractor is having his own structural design, so the detailed structural design, what kind of method he is using for the structural design, what are his assumptions for the structural design, so whether it is in line with the principles concept, okay, and if there is a highway constructions, whether alignment is as per the design of pavements or alignments is as per the standards or not. So the all those details, the broad details of the designs, if there is a contractor side design, then broad set of details has to be enclosed in the envelope too. So all these details, who will be scrutinizing? The scrutinized by the engineer concerned. Engineer concerned of whom? Engineer concerned of the client or a owner. So it will be scrutinized by the engineer concerned. So if there are any doubts, okay, if that engineer feels, or if the engineer having any doubts, any issues, that the doubts will be clarified by the uh, owner or engineer or a architect. If it is an unfeasible design, if the contractor submits one design and if it feels, uh, if the owner or the principal feels it is unfeasible design, then those quotations might not be considered. So sometimes what happens is there might be uneconomic design of the sections or uneconomic design of a particular um, structural components. So in such cases, it should be unfeasible designs. It will becoming an unfeasible design. So such quotations cannot be considered. Then comes envelope number 3 and 3A. So envelope 3, as I told you, it will be submitted earlier by the contractor. The details of bill of quantities, those things will be submitted by the contractor in envelope 3. But whereas envelope 3A will be submitted once envelope 2 has been opened. See, once envelope 2 has been opened, there might be some changes in the contract document, contract assumptions. So those changes will be incorporated here and 3A will be submitted. So that's to see the deviation or that particular changes. Envelope 3 and envelope 3A both will be submitted, simultaneously, or both will be opened simultaneously on the specified date. Okay, so when with in what way it will be opened? It will be opened in the presence of tenderers. Okay, so the it will be a open type of meeting, and every contractor's envelope number 3 and envelope 3A will be opened on the simultaneously in the presence of tenderers. So here, to arrive at final figures with respect to the offers without individual conditions. Okay, common set of conditions will be laid, so which will be acting as a part of document. So the individual conditions, usually one contractor uh, might have his own conditions, the other contractor will be having his own conditions. To arrive at a common set based on the contract documents that has been prepared, the final figures will be arrived. Here, envelope, we had studied the envelope um, submission, receipt, and opening. So once the tenders has been opened, and now the principal or the owner or the committee who is evaluating tender, on what basis they will be evaluating? There will be four phases for the evaluation of tender. Okay, what are the different four phases of evaluation? It is the preliminary evaluation, post tender interview, final evaluation, and risk analysis. What here, what is the things that will be carried out in preliminary evaluation is, it is just a screening of tenderers. The second one is post tender interview. It is post tender interview means it might be one-on-one interview, or to get the feedback of the contractor. This post tender interview might be conducted. Then comes final evaluation based on the mm, preliminary evaluation and the tender interview. The principal will be getting some idea about the contractors, the profile of the contractors. Then comes risk analysis. Risk analysis means if the contract has been awarded to the contractor, this particular contractor, what is the risk associated with that project, whether it is an insignificant risk or whether it is a medium risk or a high risk, what kind of risk is associated with this project, and is the contractor capable of overcoming such risk? Risk analysis will be applied. Here, in the detailed study of preliminary evaluation, the tenders management and administrative structure means the company's profile of the contractor. So how tenders management and administrative structure. So that here the details of that contractor might have submitted the details of the technical persons, plant and machinery, the workflow structure of the organization or workflow structure for that particular project. The client or the owner, he will be seeing how this workflow structure is, how the tender is going to have his own administrative structure for this project. Those evaluation will be performed there. Then the financial statement based on the income tax, financial income tax clearance certificate, and the details of projects in hand, details of the work that has been carried out, cost of the projects that has been already carried out. So based on those things, the financial statements, studying the financial statements of the contractors will be done in the preliminary evaluation, so to see whether the contractor is financially capable or not. Then alternative tender means if the contractor is not awarded this to contractor A, whether the contractor B is capable of doing it. Means sometimes what happens, initially the contractor might be awarded to contractor A, but he might fail in a particular phase to execute the work. In such cases, is there is any alternative option? Those alternative option also will be studied in the preliminary evaluation stage. Then tender's background and experience, from the what are the technical resources he is having, and what kind of projects he has already carried out, and what extent is he capable of conducting the conducting or executing this work, the experience of the contractor in that particular type of execution works. All those things will be studied in the preliminary evaluation. Then tender's industrial relations record means how is the relation between the contractor and the material suppliers, and how is the reputation of the contractor in the field, how is the reputation that is between the contractor and the principal of for the earlier projects. Those uh, concepts will be studied in preliminary evaluation. The following things will be evaluated in preliminary evaluation stage. The bill of quantities. The bill of quantities means the estimated quantities, schedule of rates for tendering, okay, schedule of day work rates, okay, whether the contractor is giving his quotation as per the scheduled rates of the work which has been prescribed by the government, or whether he is charging more than the prescribed rate, okay, whether the estimated quantity is as per the specifications or not, and the wages or the labor quantity, labor wages, whether it is as per the scheduled rates or not, and whether he is covering any insurances or not. Okay, all these things, the risk and all those things also will be studied in preliminary evaluation. And what changes have been made by the contractor for the pre-qualification documents, the capability of the contractor will be studied in preliminary evaluation phase. Then the statement on tenderer's plan of approach to the work. So statement on tenderer's plan of approach to the work. So he will be made, he might have made some assumptions, conditions. So whether his statements are valid or not. Okay, those things will be studied in the preliminary evaluation stage. Then the program of work includes planning, scheduling, and controlling methods. So planning how he is going to execute the plan. So what resources he is having, what is the schedule for that project, whether it is for 3 months, 10 months. So what is his assumptions, when he will be starting, when he will be ending. The complete program of the work will be evaluated. Then the schedule of key personnel. Key personnel means technical engineers are the main persons, key authorities of for that particular project. Okay, then schedule of subcontractor, whether the contractor is completely executing the work on his uh, own, or whether he is subcontracting some of the works to some small contractors. So those details has he mentioned here, or if it is mentioned, whether those subcontractors are suitable for this kind of work or not. Those schedules, and when the work they are going, the subcontractors are commencing, when they are going to end their work. Those schedules, basically the schedule of key personnel, schedule of subcontract, schedule of major items of constructional plant and equipment, as I told earlier. So some equipments might not be there with the contractor. So here the contractor may give the details that he will be hiring the construction plant or machineries from some other source. So are those plant and machineries available on the project execution date or not? Whether it is delayed, or whether it is confirmed or not. Those schedules of major items of construction plant and equipment will be cross-verified in preliminary evaluation. Some schedule of imported items, because imported items means it has to be imported from different countries. So the time period will be varying. Whether in the particular project those imported items will be on time, or whether it will be causing delay to the project. So those schedule of imported items will be made and studied in the preliminary evaluation. Schedule of tender drawings, schedule of transport and delivery, schedule of insurance policies. Here, because insurance policies means there are different type of insurance policies: contractor all risk insurance policies, labor insurance policies, transit insurances, marine insurances. So those insurance policies are, whether it is valid throughout the project or not, those schedule and validity of those insurance policies will be studied in the preliminary evaluation stage. Then the schedule of design data schedules, schedule of substitutions, or if there are any variations in the project, those schedules will be studied here. The post-tender interview, the prime function of this post-tender interview is to obtain further information from the tenders in clarification of their tender. So there might be some assumptions made by the contractor, but the principal might take it in some other way. So to clarify this doubt, to um, avoid the deviation in the scope of work, so this prime post-tender interview will be done between the contractor and the client. So it is not the occasion of negotiating any alternative offer. So this is just an interview, or just to clarify the doubts. Not here there will be no negotiations expected, or here the no negotiations will be entertained. Also, it is used to ensure that the tenderers know about and understand all important and potentially troublesome matters. Usually, based on the previous experience, the client has or the owner might have faced some issues with the contractor in the same kind of work, in the similar kind of work, or there might be some bad experience for the owner, like the contractor living in between or contractor withholding the work, and sometimes on the part of the contractor, the owner not releasing the money in time, not paying the contractor in time by the client. So all these issues can be resolved, or the questions can be question and answers can be sought in the post-tender interview. The other aim of post-tender interview is to reinforce safeguarding of the principal and engineer. So safeguarding of the principal and engineer. So two or more tenders, if there is for a single work, if there is two or more tenders, then each interview there will be different interview for a different tender. So before each interview, uh, the principal or the owner has to, or both the parties, they have to prepare their own list of questions. Okay, and which will be printed in the appropriate heading. Means usually it will be whatever the discussions that will be made, it will be through the minutes of meeting. So it will be this set of questions has to be prepared for individual for each tender. Means one tender's performance might be different, his assumptions might be different, the other second tender's his assumptions and conditions might be different. So it has to be prepared individually for each tenders. Then it has to be sent to the selector interviews, and interview invitations can be called. So once interview has been called, calling for the interviews, the time and date should be placed, and time, date, place should be nominated by the engineer. Engineer means the client side engineer or the owner side engineer. The principal and the tenders should have each represented by two persons. So a single contractor cannot attend the meeting, or a single owner cannot attend the meeting. So there should be at least two persons. Either the contractor coming to the meeting is possible, or instead of contractor, the two representative of the contractors can go for the post tender interview. So here on the principal side, engineer and one other persons will be representing the principal or owner side. In the same way, on the tender side, there should be one engineer. Usually if it is an engineer, it will be better way to talk on the behalf of the contractor. So here, um, the the names and responsibilities of the representatives has to be told to the engineer. All these meetings will be chaired by the engineer, and arrangements made to take notes. That is a formal minutes of meeting. So whatever the discussions that has been occurred, so it has to go through the minutes of meeting. So after commencement of meeting, engineer is supposed to explain the purpose of meeting and points out the matters in the minutes by incorporated in the contract. So after the commencement, the engineer has to explain the purpose of the meeting and points out the matters in the minutes which have been incorporated in the contract. So the copies of list of questions should be handed over, if not forwarded previously. So the questions, whatever that has will be discussed in this post tender interview, either it should be forwarded earlier to the contractor, or it should be personally given to the contractor before the discussion. So discussion to be restricted to the queries listed, means the agenda of the meeting has to be clear, the questions has to be specific. It should not deviate for the negotiation. Reply to be explored in depth. The reply from the contractor should be in the depth, means it should be satisfactory. Assessment of the points in relation to the final evaluation. Minutes of meetings to be forwarded to the consent tenderer with the cover of letter, and the immediate reply with agreements or comments should be taken by the contractor. So the minutes of meeting, whatever that has been made, should be submitted to the contractor, and the contractor should give an acknowledgement whether he is agreeing or if he is having any comments for the discussion. Minutes should be set out. It should include the date and place of the meeting, the names of those present with their positions, matters discussed, decisions made or replies given. The final evaluation will be having analysis and assessment of three components. That is the three components here: general, contractual and administrative review. Financial appraisal. Financial appraisal means the financial status of the contractor, and technical evaluation, reviewing the technical persons, resources, all those will be done as discussed earlier. General, contractual and administrative review, that is conformity with enquiry documents and notice to the tenders, completeness and validity of the tender, exclusions and qualifications, insurance arrangements. These things I have discussed earlier. Tenders administration, proposals and expertise, tenders record in industrial relations, source of labor and working hours, mobilization and demobilization of labor. In financial appraisal, the estimated capital cost, financial standing of the tenderer, the financial arrangements by the tenderer, discounted cash flow and program of payments, arrangements for security and retention, guarantees and bonds, adjustment for fluctuation in costs, currencies and exchange rates. In technical evaluation, if it is applicable generally, technical capacity of tenderer, conformity with the specification drawings are studied, program of the works and completion of delivery dates, extents of subcontracted work, supervision and quality control, location of offsite facilities. Okay, if, for example, if the work is at a different site, so what are the provisions to be made for the principal as well as contractor? If there are some visits made by the principal, or if there are labors at the site, so what are the provisions, whether it has to be for the labors, whether it has to be provided by the principal side or whether it has to be provided by the contractor side, or for the technical people who are working at the site, what provisions to be made, either it is from the principal side or contractor side. Quality of materials and fabrications. So the materials are as per the relevant Indian standards codes, or it is from the international standardization codes, like that. The clauses will be mentioning the qualities of materials and fabrication. So applicable to civil structural work. So the technical evaluation for the civil or a structural work, method of construction or fabrication, extent of temporary works, construction plant and equipment which is available or required in case if it is hired from some other third party, how it is available, on what date it is available, the schedule of availability, all those things will be in construction plant and equipment. The third technical evaluation, it is applicable to mechanical or electrical work. So in mechanical or electrical means the efficiency of the design. Okay, how efficient is the design, whether it is serving the life of the particular project or not. The design is efficient to serve for the life of the project or not, and the estimated service life and ease of installation. Do we require any specialized technology or a specialized machinery for the installation, or whether it is required some specialist contractor or some technical persons from other parts of the countries for the installation. So those things will win the technical evaluation which is applicable for mechanical or electrical work. So ease of maintenance, the maintenance can it be done locally, or whether the maintenance has to be taken to the place of the manufacturer, or whether the manufacturer is providing services to the place where it has been installed, and availability of spare parts. Again, the spare parts are available locally or internationally, or whether the company is manufacturing spare parts or not. Those things has to be studied, or the cost of the spare parts, whether it is too costly or whether instead of buying spare parts, whether the new machinery is available. All those things has to be studied at the technical evaluation stage. Then level of operator training available are required. Sometimes for operation of specialized equipments or machineries, there is some specialized training required or technical personnel required to operate such kind of machineries. And there are some agencies, training agencies, who grant licenses for the persons who undergo training. Only such technical persons can be operator for the specialized equipment. So whether the level of operator training is available or whether it is required for the particular execution of the project. So that is in the case of applicable to mechanical or electrical work in technical evaluation. The last part of evaluation of tender is risk analysis. What do you mean by risk analysis? As I told you, the project might be having high risk, low risk, insignificant risk, medium risk, like that. Uh, Once you choose a contractor to execute a job, if the job is of insignificant risk and the contractor is not capable of handling that insignificant risk, then the project might be delayed, or it might be having a time and cost overruns, or there might be damage to the project. Okay, so there might be failure to the project. So to avoid such uncertainties or to avoid such circumstances, the possible consequences of the following risk should be appraised, or it should be studied before commencement of the project. That is inadequate performance by the contractor, poor supervision and quality control, inability to meet the date for practical completion and other program milestone dates. So the as per the schedule, whether the contractor is meeting the requirements, or as per the quality standards, the quality of work is achieved by the contractor or not. Okay, all these things will be done studied in the risk analysis part of the evaluation process. So the failure of temporary works or elements of works, the contractor's failure to meet performance requirements for mechanical and electrical plant and services, effect of delays due to industrial disputes. There might be some labor strike or labor availability. Initially, contractor thought the labor will be available at the site, but um, due to the accessibility of site or due to uncertainty situations at the site, okay, the contractor might not be able to address such issues, or there might be some industrial disputes, uh, some political issues or environmental issues coming into picture. So the delays may may be there due to industrial disputes. So taking into account the tenders track record in industrial relations or from the previous relations of the contractor in the field. So for the previously executed works, how the contractor has been performed those works, how was the relation between the contractor, tenderer, means the principal and the contractor, and the relation between the contractor and the laborers, or the contractor and other parties such as the material suppliers, whether the contractor is having high risk or whether he is having any disputes with the material supplier, whether he is not performing as per the quality standards. Okay, those issues, those industrial relations in the market has to be studied here, will be made in the risk analysis part. Then the effect of lack of collaboration with the principal and other parties involved in the work. As I told in my earlier session, there will be many um, stakeholders. Okay, the stakeholders of the project might be architect, project architect, design firms, project management consultants, government bodies or private bodies. There might be contractors, there might be subcontractors, there might be bank or a financial institutions. Okay, there might be insurance risk or this insurance bodies. So the whether the contractor who is taking up this project, whether he is capable of maintaining a good relation with the all the stakeholders, or whether he is having that capability or not, those things will be studied in the risk analysis part of the post evaluation of the tender. So the summary of this tender is the requirements of particular tender will be having invitation, instruction, and contents on tender. So there will be three parts. The first one is submission of tenders. The second part is receipt of tender. Third part is evaluation of not is opening of tenders. Once opening of tenders takes place, the tender evaluation will be done. So the tender evaluation, how it will be done? It will be having a preliminary evaluation, post tender interview, final evaluation, and risk analysis. So this is the outline of this session, tenders part 2. Thank you.